Let's talk about Mike Bloomberg, world's 9th richest person, former mayor of New York, and a man who wants to be president. Bear in mind, he doesn't officially arrive on the ballot until March the 3rd. That's Super Tuesday, when the Democratic Party is going to hold primaries across 14 states. But he's very much in this race already. You may have seen on Wednesday Donald Trump saying he's not worried about Mr. Bloomberg. He's more worried about facing Bernie Sanders. But today the president tweeted, Mini Mike is a 5'4" mass of dead energy who doesn't want to be on the debate stage with these professional politicians. He hates crazy Bernie and will, with enough money, possibly stop him. Bernie's people will go nuts. To which Michael Bloomberg replied directly to the president, Donald Trump, we know many of the same people in New York. Behind your back, they laugh at you and call you a carnival barking clown. They know you inherited a fortune and squandered it with stupid deals and incompetence. I have the record and resources to defeat you, and I will. So the two men are obviously getting on well. It's evident Mr. Bloomberg sees the president's wealth as an attack line. Have a look at this last week.
Do you think people are interested in seeing two billionaires fight out over Twitter or in the way that you guys seem to be going at it right now?
Two billionaires? Who's the second one?
Touché. Well, here's the BBC's North America correspondent, Anthony Zerka.
And you got to remember, these two individuals have history that goes back decades in New York City. So the fact that this is becoming personal in a kind of a New York City politics sort of way, trading insults, I guess that shouldn't be too surprising. But it's a fight that Michael Bloomberg is looking for. He's seeking this out because I think he views this as elevating his standing among the Democrats, proving that he's someone who could go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump and fight him in his own element on social media and come out the better for it. Other candidates have tried, certainly, but generally it's very difficult to take on Donald Trump in these sorts of situations.
So we're in this curious situation where he's campaigning, but he's not even on the ballot yet.
No, he's not on the ballot. He is doing something that is unorthodox in the history of modern American presidential primary politics, and that's skipping Iowa and New Hampshire and the other early states and focusing solely on these Super Tuesday states, a whole handful of states across the country, some of them very large like Texas and California, that are holding their primaries the first Tuesday in March. And the theory is he doesn't need to build up steam in Iowa or New Hampshire. He doesn't need to make a name for himself that way. He has virtually a limitless resources, $62 billion in personal wealth that he can devote towards advertising in these states like California, like Texas, that are huge media markets that none of the other candidates, save for maybe Bernie Sanders, can compete with because they just don't have the campaign resources. It's unconventional. It's never been tried before, but in theory it could work because money is not an issue for him.
Money's not an issue, and of course elections aren't won by money alone, but it certainly helps. And Michael Bloomberg's already spent over $300 million. That's more than all the other candidates put together, more than Barack Obama spent on his entire campaign in 2012. And it's having an impact. Here's one national poll from earlier in the week. Mike Bloomberg's there on 15%. That puts him third behind Joe Biden, who's currently going down and down, and Bernie Sanders, who's had a pretty good week. Also bear in mind, Mr. Bloomberg saying he'll spend around $1 billion taking on Donald Trump, whether he's the Democratic candidate or not. And much of that money is going on targeted ads. Here's Steph Kite from Axios on why.
The Trump campaign really found this new way to use Facebook to benefit the campaign, to push out ads. They really figured out a really unique trick, and they're king of this kind of campaign advertising. And so now we're seeing Bloomberg, who's spending even more than Trump on Facebook ads and other television ads and network advertising, and continuing to go after Trump. One thing that we've noticed in a lot of his ads is that he really does present himself as a stark contrast to Trump. He goes after Trump's policies. He spends very little time going after other Democratic candidates at this point. When pressed, Bloomberg will criticize in kind of subtle ways, but he is really all about running the general election. He is running his campaign as if it is him versus Donald Trump, and you see that a lot in the kind of ads that he's putting out.
And it's not just focused on conventional advertising. The Bloomberg campaign has commissioned some of the internet's top viral content creators to generate content about him. A group called Meme 2020 has been engaged to create this sponsored content, particularly for Instagram. So here's one example on kale salad, a meme page with over 3.5 million followers. It's in the format of a message conversation between Mr. Bloomberg and the account owner. Mr. Bloomberg says, "Hello, Mr. Salad, can you post this meme to make me seem cool?" To which he says, "I'd like to be compared with kale, tough and tasteless, but good for you." The page replies, "That isn't funny," which of course is true. Mr. Bloomberg says, "I'll give you $1 billion." And there's more like that, plenty of them. All state they're sponsored by Mike Bloomberg. The reaction's been mixed. This guy's saying anyone sharing a pro-Bloomberg meme is forever cancelled. Please pass it on. Others more impressed says, "I'm not a Bloomberg fan, but this strategy of leaning into meme accounts in super awkward ways on Insta is kind of great." Well, here's Anthony in Washington's assessment.
The reality is that Michael Bloomberg is running his presidential campaign like a multi-billion-dollar media empire, which he heads. So it is a different kind of a strategy. But when you have these kind of resources that he has, he can try different avenues, try different experimental techniques that maybe previous campaigns haven't tried or that haven't been applied to traditional political campaigning. I've been talking with some Bernie Sanders supporters over the past week. I was at his headquarters just a couple nights ago in New Hampshire, and I brought up Michael Bloomberg to them, and boy, they do not like him. I mean, Bernie Sanders has campaigned against billionaires over the course of the past 5 years, and for them to face a prospect of a billionaire sinking resources into these kind of advertising campaigns in such a huge amounts, they view it as just another example of a system that's out to get their guy.